Hey guys! Today I want to talk to you about violence. Things happening in Hamburg are ironic at best, but there is too much about it that's upsetting me to get into that specifically right now. I want to talk about violence as a form of expression. Here is how I think nature versus nurture is having the last laugh on most of our actions. We spend so long in the cave that even the bits we aren't biologically programmed to do, we are programmed to do, because it kept us alive for millions of years until this glorious season. Take hunter-gatherer trend, for example. Men like to go out, brave the storms, get the goodies, be praised by other men, patted on the shoulder, drag the kill back into the cave, get attention from the honeys. Women like to sit in the cave where it's safe, keep the fire going, watch over the little ones, wait for the men to return and bring them things. Women like shopping for this reason. It makes them feel like everything is going to be okay. In no civilization did females en masse yearn to go out and risk life and limb to bring back the kill while men sat, weaved, and made sure the kids are clean. You had hard times when both had to do it so that they could all survive, and you had places where neither had to because the land was fertile and there were chickens. Over time, when we got agriculture, urban settlements, lesser, weaker humans for the lack of various nutrients and so on and so forth, people divided into those who did the crops and people divided into those who made profit of them. Before anyone takes my head off, the reason why some people are still attracted to 11-year-old girls is because 11 used to be the only time you could have babies and propagate your gene because chances were you weren't going to be around at 18. There are cultures today where mothers carried their young on a hip for years, 2, 3, even 4 years, because if they crawled out of the shadow of the mothers, something would either sting or bite or gnaw or burn or poison or crush or eat them. Which brings us to today's topic. Why do we still think, after all this time, after all the options, that violence is cool? Globalization of a species. Even though it's not a unique occurrence, they were in prehistory moments like stomatolites and the bacteria just covering the entirety of the planet and changing it, but they couldn't help themselves, whereas we know what we're doing. We have the option not to do it. We have options and intelligence, even the tools to do it the other way, and we still opt for the worst possible means of gaining. Even the people who believe in deities, and you ask them, why does God allow this shit to happen? People will tell you, well, we are God's children, and they've been trying to raise us properly up until now, and now they're sort of pushing us along to see if we can handle it on ourselves. We can't. We keep doing the same mistake over and over, clinging to the fundamental nature of our kind. Isn't it the orgastic highlight of any confrontation when the underdog sogs the bully in front of everybody? When the hero guns down or kicks the villain off a building, when the hero slays the dragon? That used to be a metaphor for winter, by the way, not an actual dragon. Mitra slayed the dragon or bull of winter and then had sex with thankful maidens, meaning spring. It's so sexy, in fact, and so admired, this principle drive to solve everything with violence, that almost all the highest grossing films, which are the evolutionary extension of stage plays, which are the extension of bigger or smaller Colosseum spectacles where nobody went to watch old men scream profound monologues to the gods or the fates, I promise you, involve some sort of violence. And I'm not just talking about guns, the advertising of which is so prominent in the United States that you'll have some form of shooting in almost every top-grossing franchise, be it pirates shooting cannons or wizards shooting wands, elves shooting bows, and everyone else shooting everything else. I wish I could say it's a metaphor for something spiritual or something sexual even, but it's sadly just an ad for guns. Same as it used to be an ad for drinking and an ad for cigarettes. Even if it is just an ad for how you can be cool and for a way of life, why does it have to involve something so primitive and counterproductive? I've tried actively avoiding films with guns, but I was left with very few choices, even outside the American movies, which I still find to be extremely enjoyable. Back in the good old days of Ice Age retreating and humans having almost no say in the food chain, violence amidst tribes had two main functions. Two besides the gene eliminating competition by murder, because genes do that all the time in every species. No, the two more prosaic ones. Thinning the numbers where resources were too few, and mixing the blood. Even if there was plenty food for everyone and almost no natural threats, you got hordes of marauders who stole the cattle and made babies. Without them, settlements grew stale and unhealthy. If you look at remote villages, in the mountains, or in secluded valleys, where life was great, it was beautiful. Unfortunately, generation after generation, if there was no new blood, people started to get sickly. Nature used to solve that by sending hordes of crazed, violent people. That's why it was so rare for women to actually be damaged in battles. Anthropologically speaking, it was young men that needed to be thinned out, but new babies made by healthy young women. Up until the 20th century, that's what war was all about. Eliminating the men and getting the women for yourself. Then the rules changed because people got way too fucking crazy. Did you ever wonder why in every society, no matter how well off, there are thieves and thugs and rebels and people stirring shit up? Why there has never been a regime that everybody would enjoy? Not in the real world. There is no such thing as utopia for humankind, but it's not the reason you may think. People fight against the system, not just to challenge the foundation of the system. Because while systems may be well designed, people aren't that stupid. They know that somebody will be clever enough to abuse it. But because every society needs the policeman and the fireman and the search and rescue and so on, every society needs a sense of being even slightly on the lookout. Nasty stuff will always happen, natural disasters will always strike, and if a vast group isn't even a little bit prepared for the worst, most casualty won't come from the panic. If a massive wave of anguish strikes an entirety of a culture, if it isn't used to getting over it, it won't stand up again. I mentioned there are original tribes still alive today, right now, on this planet. We've stopped trying to colonize them, so they are insisting in their own traditional ideas. I'll talk about them some other time. They're fascinating, and a fascinating study of where we are originating from. One thing all those societies have in common, regardless of which end of the planet they inhabit, how lucky they are with the environment or how unfortunate, they wage war on their neighbors. That is the one constant. They hunt for food, they make babies, and they wage war. War is unfortunately the fastest and most profitable solution to any problem. The irony being that any human you ask, except war profiteers and, the psychopaths who need an excuse to murder people, when a bully makes you miserable, the fastest way to put him off is by retaliating violently. Because that is the language they understand. You don't take the time to teach them any other. You don't find them worthy. You don't even consider that they're a person when they're being mean to you. It's just a method for you to survive. Very few use wit and cunning to rid the world of violent ways. In culture, in books, in movies, in plays and games and so on, very few seek ways to eliminate the violence by outsmarting the thug. It just isn't cathartic enough. Even when Lisbeth Salander, everyone's favorite avenger of men who hate women, gets retaliation on her attacker by mostly outsmarting him, it was not enough for the guy at the end of the book, because that guy deserved worse, and the worse was death. I don't think so. I don't believe in death penalty because I wasn't in prison, but I have been secluded from people, and I know how terrible it is to be alone with yourself for the rest of their life thinking about what they've done. That is much worse than death, especially if you don't believe in hell. The worst of the living do not deserve the gentleness of a quick death. Unfortunately, regardless of how far we think we've come, people can be awfully dumb. It takes not half of an excuse to return to the cave and start acting the worst version imaginable. Right back to looting, enslaving, and threatening, and murdering, and maneuvering circumstances to the most basic drive, staying alive. All those survivalist movies where the guys or a single guy just barricades himself away from the zombie apocalypse, that is not life. That is not what you're supposed to do. You're supposed to save as many people as possible and rebuild. You're not supposed to isolate yourself and hope that you'll survive maybe another winter. Sometimes you see the lights go out and people start acting out in a day. Who does that? How wound up must people be to do that? You get words like, without electricity, we will be returned to the Stone Age. And so? Did you forget we originated from nothing? And it's where we thrived the most? What are you so afraid of? Losing the little bit of what you already have? So what? You were smart enough to get it up until this point. What's wrong? We'll just get it again. We'll make it better, and easier and faster, and better distributed among the other people. Do you think there's starving children on this planet because we can't produce enough food? Really? No king in history was taken seriously without starting at least one good war, without colonizing at least one country, enslaving or murdering all the natives and taking all the stuff that those people had. And I'm not saying that all of those places were wonderful. You had nations who were horrible. They had it coming. No god is taken seriously without smiting his people's enemies with hammers, or swords, or lightning bolts, or in a case of recently popular ones, eternal damnation. If you look at the dictators today, they're a joke. A horrible joke. A dark joke. But if you look at the poor little fat Kim Jong-ilist, saddled with a tremendous army by his psychopathic father, an army he can no longer sustain, and he can't thin it out because nobody will go to war with him. It's the only thing he wants, but none of the big boys are taking him seriously. I can just imagine a bunch of North Korean military representatives coming to China every once in a blue moon, sit down about those rockets and bombs flying everywhere, and they be like, dudes, we can't even words. We got nothing. And the Chinese old military guys are desperately bargaining like, can't you put a leash on him or something? And the Koreans wail, it's like you guys didn't come to his wedding or something. Now he wants to burn down the world. It's just, help us out. Yeah, well, it's all fun and games for the bored rich in the high castles until people start starving. Then you just start another war, and the plague and the famine will just take care of the ones at home. Hey, it worked for the past 2 million years. Why fix something ain't broke? It used to be the most needy that started the revolutions. Even though they turned out to be terrible people and the revolution ate them, because revolution always eats their children. Most peasant revolts was a couple of good-meaning people and then thugs, much like Antifa actually, who just like to break things and hurt other people, innocent people. Because, nobody's innocent, or whatever their strategy is. Whatever gets them to sleep at night. Most people who came home from Vietnam and places like that, they didn't suffer post-traumatic stress so much because what was being done to them, but because the things that they did. You can't kill a woman or a child and just go on. That is the last time you see your soul. And there's no coming back from that. But we still believe that there's enough dirty work so that we have to pay someone to do it for us. There is not. Unfortunately, it's a manly thing to do. Pitchforks first and guillotines and hey, we go to the oppressors and the foul enemies on the other side of the border. We are brave. They're horrible. They're villains. Yeah. Read a book about what happened after the Second World War in Europe. About the things that the liberators and those who were supposed to be helping the people did. Read that. You're not gonna like it. Even if you look at the things we call benevolent, like the sports, which is another extension of the good old arena days. The highest grossing ones are the most violent ones, be it a bunch of sweaty men kicking each other's ball, or for the love of all that's civilized, ring sports like boxing, where two grown men effectively try to assassinate one another by causing one another internal bleeding, while their friends and their family and people who just like to watch that sort of thing cheer, hit him harder, hit him, murder him. Are you fucking insane? The money wasted on these barbaric entertainments would be 1,000,000 times better spent developing better medicine with less side effects, or educating more people, even inventing faster transport so we can finally stop massacring this planet, find some cushy barren wasteland on some other planet and build up a sandcastle we can tear up there. But no, who cares about clean energy and less polluting means of civilized indulgence and peacetime scientific progress if you can have blood sport on your TV? The irony of my view is the fact I understand the man's paranoid need for alertness. Because once we ran out of things to fear in nature, we made it all in our power possible to fear one another. My country was built up again from war by one of the better dictators, and he said, you can be kind and nice and naive all you care and enjoy the peace, but don't be stupid. Just be prepared. I've put myself in situations where all this was much too easy to observe. I've lived through a small war. I've been in the army. I worked in a tense cogwheels of a medium-sized ship where there is little room for negotiation when things are happening. There was always some emergency going on. And when things got really real, you couldn't even remember your room number. You needed to be prepared. Better to be prepared and never needed than the alternative. I belong to a hunting family, and I can stay outdoors for a very long time. I will never harm a living thing. I pick up fucking snails from the path when we're going on a doggy walk because I don't want them to be crushed. I rescue stray kittens and stray baby birds and there is no person that I wouldn't help if I saw it needed help. But I also know how settlements are designed. I know how camps are built. I know how water is purified. I know how you need to structure society that's been forced to relocate from what they're comfortable with, to keep it from ripping itself to pieces the moment you take the cover off the pot. It can be done. It just isn't very easy, and it certainly isn't very sexy. Even if you stayed with me till the end of this video, good job, but you have to admit it got a little boring and preachy towards the end because world without wishing you could punch someone who takes your parking space? What kind of world would that be? Facing a violent enemy armed with wit and cunning and the worst of all diplomacy? Nonsense, my good fellow. Name me a country with enough faith in diplomacy to not waste a sick cut of their budget for some clandestine shadow agencies, made mostly of impressionable orphans raised to be machines to assassinate all of those their government doesn't agree with, or all of those who refuse to fall for the cowboy strategies of their governments. Hey, you know what? We could just call them all commies and napalm the shit out of them. It worked for Cuba and Vietnam. Oh, wait.